not quite sure it's her or Pepsi, but you know, I suddenly one day, sometimes Pepsi's my best girl, sometimes.
The children have a lot of exposure to people that normally they wouldn't, and also he's taken us on many trips that normally we would not have been able to go on. And not only that, just in his world. I mean, I always say that we orbit in the Clark orbit. we do. You know, this house always just moves, and if you're in this house, you're definitely in the Clark orbit.
He's all the time is coughing, you know. And then I took to England to find out what it is. Then the doctors said that he was suffering from Lou Gehrig's disease. And then I immediately decided to take him to United States, to Johns Hopkins. We were waiting for the doctor to come with the result. And when the doctor mentioned that he's not suffering from Lou Gehrig's disease, it's only a post-polio syndrome, Arthur was very, very happy, you know. We all was very happy. And we don't know how happy we were. You can't imagine, you know. To a man who told about 2 years he's going to finish his life, and here he come and says nonsense, you know.
Come on, Pepsi. Come on, little Pepsi. Come on. Come on, let's go sit down. There you are. All right, Pepsi. All right, Pepsi. Isn't it? It's a big, big, strange world, isn't it? There. Look at that. It's hugging the camera. That should be really nice. Look at that. Look at that. When people ask me this question, often the quick answer I give is, why do you live in Sri Lanka? I answer, 30 British winters. The Ramans deliberately created it to deal with equally nasty creatures. En garde. Cut. To deal with equally nasty creatures. En garde. Okay, Miss Makeup.
This is not my forte, but I'll learn. That's it. It's all stuff you learn.
Okay, I wonder which is avian. Exactly what you're wondering.
It is 9 feet tall, and it's right here next to you.
Yeah. Okay. Do I look scared or intrigued?
No, you look like you would look like you.
A wonderful creature, this avian. The crab biot picks up anything it considers to be trash. Nothing remains on the ground in plain sight for very long. Crab buyout of anything it considers to be trash. Nothing remains on the ground in plain sight for very long. Well, you see, I ended Rendezvous with Rama with the phrase, the Ramans do everything in threes. Now, a lot of people thought that I was heading for a sequel then, but for years I said, no, I just felt that was the right way to end the book. I will never write a sequel to Rendezvous with Rama. But then, when this guy came along, he had one or two ideas about engineering and so forth, you know. I realized, yes, if I want to develop this further, and after all, if the Ramas do everything in threes, there may be two more coming, or maybe one's already come. Anyway, the possibilities are there, and so let's look into it. And one thing led to another, and another, and another.
Right.
I got a letter from my agent saying that there was someone who had some idea for a science fiction story, and he wanted to work with me. Well, I said, no way, I have too many ideas of my own. And then he said that he was involved with the Galileo project, the space probe to Jupiter. And of course, I've been very interested in Jupiter because Jupiter was the scene of much of the action in the Odyssey series. And so I said, oh yes, then I'd like to see this fellow. And so he said, okay, you know, at least it won't do any harm to talk to him. I might get some good ideas from him.
The most important thing that I have learned from Arthur is the precision of the English language. I tend to be verbose and to use 5 words where 2 or 3 will do. And there's some that will argue that all I've done is figure out how to only use 4, and I'm still too verbose. But it's been a great experience for me to watch the felicity he has with the English language.
Yes, I'm not quite sure how I do feel. In fact, one of the criticisms of this kind of interactive adventure is that, well, it's not what the original author created. I mean, would you like Hamlet with a happy ending, you know? Well, or maybe it'll be interesting at least. But what I hope this sort of thing will do will educate people. It'll make them realize, in the case of the Rama series, the scope of the universe, the fact that we are probably not alone. It will teach them and stretch their minds. And that's why I like this particular development. I'm very much against the violent stuff. And, you know, another Martian bit the dust kind of thing. At least anything that gets clobbered in our adventure, it deserves to be clobbered.
In the past, it hasn't. But now that I have been through this extraordinary experience of trying to blend a story and gameplay, which is what we're trying to do in Rama, neither one ascendant. Good gameplay, good story, wrapped together in a literary form. I now think that most of my novels in the future will be shaped by the fact that there is another medium that may reach more people. Again, what Arthur said earlier, the good feature of having science fiction done as on a computer is that there will be many more people who will know the story than there might be if we just were limited to the single medium of writing books.
I said, what is that? Remember, I haven't seen any of these new multimedia, whatever you like to call them, with a fairly few exceptions, and I really had no idea of what was involved, and I'm extremely impressed now with what I have seen. I don't think I ever imagined I would become a professional author. I wrote entirely for fun in a school magazine in my late teens, and later on amateur science fiction magazines, made a few dollars here and there. And then I got a job, very good job in the Institution of Electrical Engineers, editing science abstracts and getting all the world's scientific magazines to abstract. But I was still writing, you know, in my spare time. And what happened was that my salary at the Institute of Engineers went like that. My salary or my income as a science fiction writer went up like that, and at the crossover point I just resigned. And it was no hassle, no problems. I published a number of novels, Sands of Mars, Predator Space, from a small press, GNOME Press. But I think the first real success was certainly with Childhood's End, when Ballantine took it, and it got very good reviews, including in the New York Times. And so that was my first commercial and indeed a critical success outside the science fiction ghetto. Well, science fiction is an extrapolation, usually, of known science, or at least plausible science. And incidentally, science fiction does not, as many people think, try to predict the future, but it does try to predict perhaps the technological future, you know, what might be possible if certain scientific fields are developed further, or maybe if new branches of science are discovered.